What's going on YouTube? This is Jim Afanis for FIlmGamesEtc.com, and I wanted to do a Battlefield Hardline video to go along with the written blog I'd posted earlier in the week. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, go down the description box below and I'll leave a link in there for you to read about it. And now I know I was pretty hard on the game, and I gotta say I'm still standing behind what I wrote. Although I do have to admit that as I did spend a little more time viewing it, I could see a little bit of light in the darkness. But it really does revolve around the lack of polish. I think that's what it really comes down to. If you notice, I'm using the sniper rifle right now, and you notice that the actual lens that you look through is just a solid piece of like black plastic on the back. There's no light reflection through the scope, and you can't actually see through the scope like you would with a real lens or anything. And it's just kind of weird that certain guns like that have a really bad attachment. I think back to games like Halo and like Halo 2 and stuff actually had something there. Now maybe it wasn't an exact one-to-one representation of the world around it, but it's still better than looking at just an unfinished piece of asset in the game. And then you look at this machine gun and actually is at least transparent where you can't actually see through in the world behind it. So why is that happening? I don't understand. The lack of polish doesn't just stick with the guns though, just the overall world, especially in the way you move and camber and jump over objects. It just seems very clumsy. Hit detection isn't really all that great either. I look at how I get stuck on goofy things like fire hydrants, or in one of the gameplay sessions, I don't know if it's in this video or not, I try to run and jump over the side of a car, and I can't get up, and it's very clear to me that you should be able to, but either I wasn't hitting it at the right angle, or the game wasn't registering what I wanted it to do, and basically you just had this this goofy scenario where you're just jumping up and down like an idiot, and it just does take away from the realism. And now I know that Battlefield has strived to be more realistic, and I do appreciate that, as opposed to like a Call of Duty, which is more of a run and gun type game. Battlefield has always been more based in realism and the strength of the numbers and working with your squad and, you know, really tactically positioning yourself in the most superior place you can be. So with that said, that's where I feel like a lot of the collision detection and the way you jump over or try to jump over objects and try to set yourself up for good cover, I think that really takes away from that, because I do believe that is one of the big assets and one of the big benefits of Battlefield is that that system should be in place, and it's not. Now, if you guys remember, we did get a first look at this beta way back on E3 last year. It was actually the conclusion of the press conference when they announced, oh, by the way, Hardline is live right now. And everybody went nuts and jumped on, and I will say the game has shown some improvement since then, but not enough to warrant this long period. I mean, you're talking more than half a year of actual rework on this game, and I'm not really entirely convinced that it's in a better state than it was before. If you don't believe me, just do a quick YouTube search on the original Battlefield Alpha for Hardline and take a look at the graphical comparison and just the overall gameplay and sense of how the world was between then and now, and I think you'll see that there hasn't been a lot of major strides in any areas. Now, I am playing this on the PlayStation 4 and I am using Share Factory, and YouTube obviously does have some compression on top of everything else. But it's in playing this game, I noticed the textures were pretty jaggy, and I never really felt like this was like a true next-gen experience. To me, this seemed more like something on par with like a PlayStation 3 experience. And the character models themselves were kind of clunky. It felt almost like an old version of Counter-Strike. If you remember, I think it was like Counter-Strike 1.5 or 1.6, when all the players got an overhaul and they all looked kind of like these bulky football players, and just the way they ran didn't seem very natural. That's kind of how I feel about this game. Just watching some of the characters run, even the way my guy's holding his gun, his arm just doesn't look very natural to me. And a lot of the, I know I went back to the, I'm not going to harp on the movement piece of it again, but I mean, not actually your camber and that sort of thing, but just watching characters run around the world, it kind of breaks the mold. And on top of that, this world has a very kind of weird plasticky, almost sheen to it. It kind of reminds me almost of like a Team Fortress 2 element where you have this kind of shiny, cartoony looking world. And again, that really goes against, to me, what the core of what Battlefield games are. Where you're supposed to have this kind of realistic world and this, real sense of terrain and cover system. I mean, you could see right here in this replay, this guy is standing behind a wall, and you could see some of the rebar sticking out of it and stuff. That's the kind of levolution, I know they don't call it that word anymore, but that's the kind of destruction and such that I would expect in a game like this. So there is some attention to it, but again, it goes back to lack of polish. It's not done consistently throughout the game. Lastly, I will give this game some major credit because they did seem to preserve a lot of the original the original sounds of Battlefield 4, which I think had an amazing sound effect library, and all the different guns were either very throaty or tinny. They had a really good oomph to them, at least audibly. I will say that I felt the same with Battlefield Hardline, that each gun did have a distinct feel to it, although I felt the gunplay was still a little off, and that may be due to some sort of server lag or some sort of other issue, and I will be a little lenient on that because it's the beta. But then again, this is a 9-month-long beta, if you really think about it, since when it happened on E3 last year. Anyways, just wanted to give some quick thoughts and impressions to go along with my written review. Always appreciate the view, comment, rate, subscribe, do all that great stuff. And tell me what you guys think. Am I way off base on this? Or did you guys feel that Battlefield Hardline is the next definitive experience? To me, it just didn't really hit the mark. It felt like it was missing too much. It's something that I'll keep my eye on, and if later on down the road, or miraculously between now until launch, it picks up, maybe I'll check it out, because I did really enjoy Battlefield 4 after they ironed all the kinks out, but I feel like we're just going to get into more of the same, and I feel like this game still has a long way to go. Anyways, that's all I got, and I'll talk to you all later. Take care.